Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome back to my channel for another week of the Shuckle Premier League Draft League for competitive Pokemon. I'm stoked to not only be back, but I'm healthy again. Oh my goodness. After having the flu for a week and a half, I was so sick, and you had to watch me do 2 matches through that, but like, we're done with that. We also just got back from a 2-week trip around the world to do some esports events. I just finished up hosting for the Vancouver Regional Championships, and I also just got back from finishing out the Into the Arcane TFT set at the Tactician's Crown Set Championships. Now we're back, ready to hopefully kick some butt in the SPL. It's not just me working on the teams. We, of course, still have our 2 big brains in the front office. We've got Ethan Matos as well as Stefan Mott, who are both incredible Draft League players as well as just great VGC players. Really stoked to have them as a part of the team, and we have already been able to cook up some really cool teams. So for this week, we're gonna have to put our big brains back on the case and hopefully be able to put together a team that can get the dub. Now, this week is probably our biggest test of strength yet. We are going up against one of the best competitive Pokemon players in the entire world, James Baek, and I'm so scared. Everyone, I am so scared. James is an incredible Pokemon player. Not only has he had an incredible myriad of experience being able to not only play VGC at the highest level, but also in some VGC draft leagues. He's just a beast player. Like, he has a regional championship from very recently at the Peoria Regional Championships in 2023. He's also an international champion, winning the 2020 Latin America International Championships in Brazil. And he's had top 4 finishes at Worlds, most recently going top 4 at the 2022 Pokemon World Championships, and just a slew of top cut performances on top of that. So I know that James is going to be coming in with the experience as a top level Pokemon VGC player, and of course, just with some of the sauce. I went back and I actually watched some of James's previous weeks, and I noticed that he was able to lean into a lot of the strategies that you sort of expect from the team. He's got Dondozo, Tatsugiri, as well as Glamora, which has been a very common core for the beginning part of Scarlet and Violet. But he also has his best Pokemon ever, Golden Go. I think he's like the championship point leader when it comes to that Pokemon and how often he used it, how much success he had with it at these regional and international and worlds level events. So James knows what he's doing with Golden Go, and that isn't even just the scariest part of the team. James has made a couple of adjustments to his roster from the first half of the season to now, and so now we're also looking at just a super well-rounded team. If you thought the Dondozo and the Tatsugiri were not scary enough on their own, there's no Tinglu in the mix. So that's really fun. There's also a Galarian Zapdos now, which is going to be the fighting move of choice over the Paldean Tauros that James had for the first half of the season. He has an incredible lineup of support Pokemon to be able to round out his roster. He's got Screamtail, which is one of the most oppressive Pokemon that has performed in Scarlet and Violet. He's got Shaman, which just comes in packing some really powerful grass-type special attacks. And then he also has Fletchinder, which is basically Talonflame Light. Has similar move pool, still has Gale Wings, and you just hold an Eviolite. Yeah, this team is super stacked. And so I'm playing an amazing VGC player, and also with some of the best VGC Pokemon we have ever seen grace the battlefield in Scarlet and Violet. Let's break down this team a little bit further though, because this team does go beyond just the initial wow factor of what you actually see on the roster. As I said before, James is the best Golden Go player in competitive Pokemon right now, and Golden Go can run a couple of different sets. Already, James has looked at using Golden Go with specs. He's also used just kind of classic offensive variants with Nasty Plot, Make It Rain, Shadow Ball. And with the specs, you open yourself up to being able to run a couple of other coverage options. We've seen Thunderbolt, he's also run Power Gem, and Golden Go also gets access to things like Focus Blast, which is particularly relevant into my team, where we have Lapras, Hisui and Gudra, and a lot of things that don't want to actually be on the receiving end of a fighting type special attack. Golden Go can also run Aura Sphere, I think, so that's another option where James can just really go down the rabbit hole of Golden Go having a high special attack stat, as well as really amazing coverage options. And Golden Go is a great bring for this week. Golden Go not only is able to hit most of my team for neutral damage, but you also just, I think, get a chance to really slow the pace of the game down. And if he expects that I'm going to have some type of setup option, then James can also just keep Nasty Plot on the Golden Go and utilize the same slow pace for himself. Now, the Dondozo Tatsugiri. Oh boy. When we were drafting, we kind of knew already right off the bat, if James is able to pick up the Dondozo, then you have to expect the Tatsugiri is coming. And he's so smart because he waited until the absolute last minute where Tatsugiri was just too expensive for everybody else to get, to snatch it up and make sure that that was going to be the final Pokemon that James rounded out his roster with. And it's been so good. I think something that was really impressive about just the way that James has navigated this season so far is that he hasn't been afraid to bring the solo Dondozo or the solo Tatsugiri. Yes, I know. I think there was a solo Tatsugiri at one point. He didn't even decide to bring the Dondozo on the team. And if James wants to go in that direction, I have to be prepared for the possibility that James will not bring both, but bring one or the other, or maybe in fact bench the Dondozo Tatsugiri altogether. I do think though, if James is going to bring these Pokemon this week, I think that you have to look at Dondozo being able to operate as a solo agent, or even just see the Tatsugiri come by itself. The issue with bringing both of these Pokemon is that I do have a couple of ways to be able to negate the Dondozo altogether. I have Mismagius that has Levitate, so Dondozo can't just go for Yawn Fissure spam into the Mismagius. Yeah, okay, you can Yawn it, but the Fissure can't hit. And Dondozo also does get checked by my Lapras, that not only has Water Absorb to make sure that you can soak up all of the big wave crashes, but Dondozo, if you go for something like an Order Up, could just get negated by a Terra Fairy Lapras. I'm not sure how reliable of a strategy James is going to look at Dondozo Tatsugiri this week. And honestly, that's better for me. I don't want to play that. You guys don't want to watch that. Let's maybe not see the Dondozo Tatsugiri. Glimmora could definitely come. Glimmora is one of those special attackers that has seen a lot of success and is actually starting to kind of see itself back into a restricted format for Scarlet and Violet. It's fast. It also has access to some really strong attacks. Meteor Beam, just any type of rock type damage, has always been super impactful in the Pokemon competitive scene. And you still get access to things like Mortal Spin to be able to apply poisons to everything and toxic spikes. And you also just, there's a lot of stuff that Glimmora gets a chance to do very well that my team certainly has to look out for. If I wanted to bring Volcarona, that all of a sudden becomes a liability. And Glimmora just has access to some really good options to try to make some positive damage trades for James's team. Tinglu is such a problem. My team is pretty special attack focused, and so when you take a look at Tinglu's Vessel of Ruin ability, dropping the special attack stat by 25% of all of the Pokemon on the field outside of itself, all of a sudden my team becomes way less impactful. We've also seen James actually lean into a couple of different strategies that can continue to lower special attack. Not only does Tinglu get access to moves like Snarl, so that's an additional way that you're going to be able to neuter the special attack output of my team, but I've also seen him put things like Noble Roar or Feather Dance and just kind of stuff that keeps the attack and special attack output of the team in check. I've also seen Defog on the Fletchinder, so that's something else that I'm thinking about as just a possible strategy for James to lean into, which makes it very difficult for me to actually run screens or set up a terrain or whatever else have you. But Tinglu in general, it's got Sand Tomb, it can trap things on my field, it also has Ruination, and so that's a way that you can really cleave through some pretty bulky HP. Pokemon, so I'm looking at Suicune and Lapras as two very beefy Pokemon on my team. Hisui and Gudra as well, and Ruination can completely deny all of that bulky HP that I love to rely upon in a game. I think Ting-Lu is a must-bring for James, and so that's going to be something that I also look at this week. Galarian Zapdos, it's just Defiant Pokemon, really good. Same type of attack bonus coverage with fighting, as well as flying. Brave Bird and close combat are going to be able to do a lot of offensive damage to the team. So this is also a Pokemon that I am going to be building around for this week. Screamtail, oh my goodness. So Screamtail has had a couple of moments in the sun, and where it's really shined in Pokemon VGC is just being a disruptive, annoying Pokemon to deal with. Like, truly one of the most annoying Pokemon of all time. What makes Screamtail really scary is, at this point, I actually haven't seen how James has used it, but there's a couple of things that Screamtail gets access to that I think really does make it difficult for me to work around. Now, Screamtail has Disable. It's one of those Pokemon that has Noble Roar. It's got Sing, Helping Hand, Encore. It also has Roar. It's got Thunder Wave. This Pokemon could even go for an Imprison set with Light Screen and Reflect. Since Screens has been a very popular strategy for me to rely upon, I could totally see a world where James thinks about the Imprison and the Screen set and puts a fourth move on Screamtail to still be very annoying. Screamtail is also naturally the fastest thing out of the entire roster for both my team and James's. And so when I look at Screamtail, it's also one of those Pokemon I think that has to be a must bring. And there's a great reason why James has decided to pick this up halfway through the season. Shaman. So a very interesting note about this draft league is that we actually can use mythical Pokemon. Now, typically these Pokemon are not allowed in competitive Pokemon formats because they can be a little bit difficult to come by, as well as just they're very powerful at times. And so when I look at Shaman, and this is going to be the cute little base form, the little hedgehog, it's got very well-rounded stats. It's going to be even across the board, but it also is just such a strong grass type attacker. And I think that's something that does make this Pokemon very scary. Shaman gets access to a move called Seed Flare, and so not only is it going to be 120 base power, but it also has the secondary effect that it does drop special defense by 2 stages. That just means that the rest of my team is going to be easier to get cleaned up by his other special attackers like Lamora, Golden Go, 2 very popular Pokemon that James has relied upon for the previous weeks of the SPL. I don't really see a whole lot of other value that the Shaman is going to provide. It gets access to Tailwind, so if James wants to bench the Fletchinder or even just have a secondary Tailwind option, Shaman looks like a really great supportive Pokemon in that way. But it's really tough to tell what the Shaman is going to do because I simply haven't seen it in competitive doubles. So I'm just going to go out on a limb and say it could come just for the grass type coverage, and we'll have to think on our feet based on what else this Shaman might have up its sleeve. Fletchinder absolutely seems like a bring this week. Fletchinder has been a very key piece for a lot of James's game plans for the previous weeks of SPL. It is Talonflame Light. You slap an Eviolite on it because it can evolve. It's going to have more bulk, and the attack stat for Fletchinder is actually not that far off than its evolution Talonflame. And so Fletchinder can not only get access to that extra bulk, it still has Gale Wings, so it's going to have that increased priority on its flying type attacks as long as it's full HP. Tailwind, Feather Dance, Dual Wing Beat is one of the offensive options that I've seen James lean into for this Fletchinder. And I've also seen him lean into the fire type attacks that it has. So something like Temper Flare, or you could even use Flare Blitz on this Pokemon, I think. So Fletchinder is certainly a Pokemon that not only gives him great speed control, but you also have very valuable offensive coverage. It's my team. So that's James's team. In my final assessment, I think that the team is going to be Fletchinder, Golden Go, Screamtail, Dondozo, and Ting-Lu. I think that 6th slot is open. It could either be Tatsugiri to go for Dondozo Tatsugiri, or it could be Galarian Zapdos just to be able to have that fighting coverage. I also see a world where James decides to actually drop one of those 6 and bring Shaman just to be able to have that Seed Flare and just the additional same type attack bonus coverage that's going to be really good grass typing into something like Suicune, Lapras, just in general, I think just has some really good neutral damage into my team. So with that being said, when we were building out for this week, I said, okay, biggest strategies that James can rely upon, you've got the Golden Go that has setup. You have so many ways to be able to neutralize special attack damage on the team and just damage in general. And James has not been afraid to be able to run a couple of tech moves on the team to catch his opponents by surprise. And the Scream Tail is just going to be very annoying. So the final version of what we came up with is Lapras, Suicune, Mismagius, Hisuian Gudra, Cornerstone Ogerpon, and Pawmot. I think a really core strategy for us this week is going to be going for hyper offense. There is a lot of opportunity here for us to be able to just hit hard, hit really fast, and see if we can muscle our way through James's pretty bulky team. So a very important strategy for us is going to be looking at the Hisuian Gudra and the Mismagius as partners in crime. Hisuian Gudra is going to have a choice scarf this week. It's going to make sure that it's going to be one of the fastest Pokemon between our 12 that's brought to the match, and it's just fast enough to outspeed our choice specs Mismagius, so it can go for an acid spray, drop the special defense of the target by 2 stages, and then Mismagius comes in with that additional special attack from the choice specs to just go ahead and explode something. Mismagius is going to have access to Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt, Grass Knot, and then Trick if I think that Trick could be useful, especially versus something like the Scream Tail. Just deny its ability to keep going for things like Encore Disable or whatever else that Scream Tail is going to be up to. It's just going to be up to no good. That's what we know. So the Mismagius has that coverage. It's going to have an Electric Terra to not only boost up the offense of the Thunderbolts, but because it's Levitate, it's going to not have any weaknesses to James's team. And the Electric Terra does give it some really nice resists to a lot of the Pokemon that I expect for James to bring this week. Hisuian Gudra, of course, can go for the Acid Spray, but it also is going to have Draco Meteor, Knockoff, and Heavy Slam. We're going for a mixed Hisuian Gudra set this week because I think Heavy Slam is a necessity to be able to have really strong damage into the Scream Tail, and Knockoff is going to be great, so if we can park the Hisuian Gudra with that Water Terra in front of something like the Golden Go, then we can go for Knockoff, which at best is going to be a super effective attack into that ghost type Golden Go, or we're just going to be able to do neutral damage if we are going to see a favorable terrestrialization in front of us. Just don't want the Mismagius or the Gudra to not have anything to deal with the Golden Go, so we've got Knockoff. And Knockoff is super good in general just to be able to get rid of the items that the rest of the Pokemon are going to hold. The rest of the hyper offensive core is going to be Ogerpon, Cornerstone, as well as Pawmot. Ogerpon this week, we really wanted to invest pretty heavily into the attack output of this Pokemon. Cornerstone is nice because Rock type Ivy Cudgel, we also have that increased crit chance thanks to that move. We're gonna have Wood Hammer. I know it's a little counterintuitive knowing that Cornerstone Ogerpon has Sturdy, and with Wood Hammer we're actually causing recoil damage to ourselves, but I don't expect that Ogerpon Cornerstone is going to be around for very long, and if we are hitting Wood Hammer, the trade-off is that we're probably doing a ton of damage to the Ting-Lu or whatever else we're hitting it with. So I really just like being able to have Wood Hammer as an option. I could run Power Whip, but Power Whip is not 100% accurate, and I'm so sick of missing moves, so I want to give myself a little bit better stability in a matchup, and hopefully the Wood Hammer is going to work out. I still think I'm going to be clicking Ivy Cudgel more often than not, so we'll see. We also have Follow Me just to make sure that Cornerstone can redirect away something that would cause Mismagius some trouble. And then Pawmot comes in as the 4th key piece of this hyper offensive core with a Focus Sash. We are also going to have Revival Blessing this week, so we can get a second Mismagius because we're going to put a lot of focus on making sure the Mismagius can go in and do its thing. It just has such powerful offensive options, so we've got the rest of the team to really support, dishing out as much damage from that Mismagius as possible. We have the Lapras with the Fairy Terra as well as the Water Absorb just to be able to deal with the Dondozo. Lapras is not going to be making an appearance unless the Dondozo is a part of James's team and we see it as a strategy he wants to lean into. But we do have Sheer Cold as our one-hit KO option. We also have Whirlpool to trap opposing Pokemon, and we have Haze and Life Dew. So this Lapras is basically going a full support outside of course, Sheer Cold. if we need it. And then there's Suicune. Suicune is going to be a secondary offensive option and game plan for this week's team. Not only does Suicune have a lot of really natural bulk, so it makes a great defensive switch if we want to be able to pivot something out, like our Choice Specs Mismagius or our Choice Scarf Hisuian Gudra to reset what move that they're locked into. But we also have a Flying Terra, so it's also going to be immune to the fissures, if that's a move that comes out. But we also just have pretty standard set: Scald, Ice Beam, Protect, Calm Mind. I don't want to lean into the Suicune right away. I think that having it as a nice switch up is a really great option to have. And if James is going to go for nasty flop boosts on the Golden Go, why not be able to have some room to weave in a Calm Mind and then just try to dish out some damage that way? So that's the 6, and so hopefully we can get the job done. But James is such a tough opponent, and this is a really scary team, so we're just gonna hope for the best for this one. All right, time to get into our match versus James Baek. We are going to be seeing the Galarian Zapdos, Golden Go, Screamtail, Tinglu, Fletchinder, and Shaman. I feel super good about getting this right. It also feels pretty good to not see the Dondozo Tatsugiri, and I'm really glad that we did some prep involving a lot of these other heavy offensive threats that we could expect to see from James's team. A couple of key things that I'm looking at here. I do think that the Galarian Zapdos is going to be an issue for the team. I can totally see a world where it does come. It's got that super effective typing into Gudra, Ogerpon, and Pawmot, and it also just has a ton of offense, and Mismagius doesn't necessarily have the best defense in the world. Now, Screamtail, I already expected this. I think it's also pretty possible that we see something like the Fletchinder and the Screamtail. Tinglu, I think, is some combination in this very first game. But I want to kind of stick to the game plan that I have. I want to be able to lead with the Acid Spray stuff. I think we have some really good offensive coverage into something like the Galarian Zapdos, and I totally expect that if that Galarian Zapdos Terras, we're gonna be able to actually lock it down. So let's just go ahead and lock into the core 4 that we have, see if we can get this hyper offense train going, and we're gonna punch through this week. We gotta punch through, and we've got to punch up. Because it's James. So, ooh, we're gonna get our workout in. So let's see what James decides to lead. We're going with the Mismagius as well as the Gudra, and of course this means with our choice items, we have to really think critically about what we're going to lock into. But we see the Shaman as well as the Tinglu. So I'm super glad to be able to see this combination of Pokemon. Of course the Shaman is a little bit nerve-wracking. I think that the Shaman could still go for something like the Seed Flare, but the fact that the Shaman is next to the Tinglu, I'm feeling a little bit better about my prospects. Tinglu is going to be using the Vessel of Ruin against the Shaman as much as it's going to be dealing with the Gudra as well as this Mismagius. I have Levitate, so I'm not worried about the Tinglu doing anything particularly annoying outside of something like a Snarl, but I'm faster than this Tinglu. So I think I'm still gonna go for the Acid Spray as well as the Grass Knot. Now, locking into Grass Knot doesn't feel amazing just because we do have the Shaman, but we have Acid Spray, so that's still going to be doing super effective damage. So I'm going to go ahead and lock into this. Acid Spray is not going to be very effective, but we see the special defense Harshly Fall, so it's not going to have something like a Covert Cloak or a Clear Amulet. And that's a one-hit knockout. That's not an Assault Vest. I don't know what that is, but we do know that the Tinglu is out of here. Shaman does go for the Seed Bomb, so it is going to do a pretty good amount of damage to the Mismagius, but the fact that we removed one of James's bulkiest Pokemon right away is amazing. If the Galarian Zapdos comes out, I am a little bit nervous about that, but we do have the Pawmot with the Focus Sash as a switch-in if I want to be able to change things up. We are locked into Grass Knot. So it's not the most amazing thing to see for the Shaman or even just like a Galarian Zapdos, but I don't know what James decided to bring as his 3rd and 4th Pokemon in this game. It's very possible that we actually don't see the Galarian Zapdos at all, and maybe it's gonna be like Screamtail or it's Golden Go or it's something. If it is Golden Go, I do have to worry a little bit about just like not being able to hit it with the acid spray, but it is going to be Screamtail. It's speed booster, as I kind of expected. Screamtail can go for Encore as well as Disable, and so that's definitely something to keep in mind. But I think that, honestly, I'm going to assume that he's actually going to go for like a Disable into the Goodra because he knows that I have Acid Spray and it's super effective into both Pokemon. But I don't know if he knows that I'm... He must know that I'm Scarf, right? Like, surely? Surely he knows that I'm Scarf. I don't want to make a double switch here because I think that's really risky. So I think that I can just try to go for an Acid Spray into the Screamtail and... Yeah, I think I'll just do that. If he protects here, I don't really think that that's that big of a deal. But he does go for the Disable into the Hisuian Goodra. I can still get some good damage with the Grass Knot, though, I think. But to be fair, Screamtail's pretty light, so maybe not. It's okay, though. Disable doesn't last for a super long time. And I still actually get a chance to bring in the Pawmot and go for the Revival Blessing onto the Mismagius. And now I'm not locked in the Grass Knot. If the Hisuian Goodra goes down, that's not really a huge problem. But what is this Shaman and Screamtail actually doing to my Goodra? You know? I'm just gonna struggle. Who cares? I'm gonna go for the Revival Blessing here. I think it is just great to be able to get that out of the way. And Psychic Fangs, sure enough. But I'm still faster than the Shaman, so I get the Revival Blessing off. I'm gonna be able to use it into the Mismagius. Because of course, I have to. But I still need to find a way to actually get rid of this Screamtail. So I'm gonna use Struggle. It's gonna go into the Shaman, and it's really not gonna be doing that much. Tailwind comes out. It is going to allow the Shaman to move a little bit faster, so that's definitely something that I have to consider here. But the nice thing about the Screamtail is even though I can go for something like the Psychic Fangs, well, I can't disable after I've used the Revival Blessing. But I think at this point, actually, I kind of need the Goodra to go down. Actually, I'm now realizing this is a problem. I'm going to go ahead and just bring in the Ogerpon here. And for the Pawmot, I'm going to see if I can just get anything off. So I'll go for the Double Shock into the Screamtail, see if James actually just leaves the Pawmot alone. But ideally, I'm looking now for a scenario where I have the Ogerpon next to the Mismagius so that the Screamtail can't actually go for the knockout into the Mismagius once it hits the field again. Ooh, Shaman's gonna go for Swords Dance! Oh my goodness. Okay, with the Tailwind, it's definitely gonna be going pretty fast, but I don't think that there's a way that the Screamtail can actually get a one-hit knockout onto me. So I am just gonna try to see if I can get some good damage into both of these Pokemon. So Mismagius comes out. This is the time. I'm gonna go for the Follow Me, and I'm also just going to go for like a Shadow Ball. I think the Shadow Ball is probably the best effort. Shaman is definitely very scary, but I think I'm just gonna go for the Follow Me. Worst case, maybe the Screamtail goes for something like a Protect, but the Psychic Fangs goes first. It breaks the Sturdy. The Shaman's gonna be doing a pretty good amount of damage with the Seed Bomb, and it is gonna be a one-hit knockout, but not before I'm able to actually get a Shadow Ball. Now, the problem here is that Tailwind is going to make this Shaman much faster. Screamtail also doesn't get knocked out here, and I don't really have a great way of stopping the Shaman from being able to actually just get the knockout into my Mismagius. Especially because the defenses are so paper thin. So, but I think I'm gonna just go for... Oh, it's so hard to tell. It's so hard to tell. What is in the back? What is in the back and what do I need to be scared of? Could just be... Yeah. I think the scream kills just go for like disable here, so I'm just gonna try to get some damage down. I do think I lose this game. I think just the shaman being physical actually makes this really, really hard. I don't really see why I would actually go for the Terra. I don't think this actually helps me, but James actually goes for Protect. So he reveals there is Protect on the Scream Tail. Seed Bomb is gonna knock out the Mismagius, so, you know, it is what it is. But at least the Sewing Ninja can go for something here. James knows, though, that I'm Scarfed or I'm Choiced. So unfortunately, oh my god, it's so bulky. Oh, it's Akaberry. Okay, I'm learning something at least. Akaberry, no fire type damage for this one. Unfortunately, I am locked into knockoff. I think I should have gone for something else here. I think Heavy Slam was the better option, just knowing how light Screamtail as well as the Shaman is. So I am going to get disabled, and I do think that this is going to be a loss for game number 1. And now I do have to think a little bit more about, okay, Shaman with speed control, definitely something that I have to worry about. I'm just gonna struggle. I want to see. I think it's gonna be way too long. I just want James to knock me out now. Please. Guja's really good, but the fact that it is going to be a sword stance set is like crazy. And I think that if I get myself into a position where the Screamtail is actually coming... Ooh, this is tough. I need to be able to find a way to actually knock out the Screamtail, but... Oh, James can't use anything either. I get the... Oh, the Seed Bomb is actually so funny. Okay. I mean, Sap Sipper, and I do actually get to knock out something, but the Galarian Zapdos is the 4th and final Pokemon for James, and so I do get knocked out no matter what, but that is actually so funny that we got to see that interaction. But Zapdos should be able to clean it. Game number 1, it makes a lot of sense. We saw James actually lead Ting Lu and the Shaman, and then you had the Screamtail and the Zapdos in the back. And so with that, unfortunately, we lose game number 1, but I think I have a lot of information to go forward for game number 2. Okay, heading into game number 2, we do have to think about figuring out how to actually deal with the Shaman. I think that when we take a look at the rest of the team, I think being able to lock into a different move would have been a bit better for our Mismagius, but it's also really difficult to keep in mind. I don't know if the Ting Lu actually comes anymore, just because of the fact that we did get the Acid Spray combo into it. And so now I kind of question, would it actually be better for me to go for something like a Ivy Cudgel, or maybe even just go for Palm Up Fake Out? I think I have a couple of options here. I think I'd want to go ahead and just lead the Mismagius no matter what. I think I would love to be able to bring something like the Cornerstone, because I think it covers for the Shaman not being able to get something set up with a Tailwind or even just for a Seed Bomb. And I'm also going to be doing pretty good damage to whatever switches in. Screamtail is pretty bulky, but I think being able to go for an Ogerpon Ivy Cudgel is a little bit better right off the bat. And we've noticed that there's nothing on James's team that actually learns, what's it called? The Fake Out. The Fake Out. So I'm going to go for the same Pokemon, but I think just in a different order, it makes a little bit more sense. So hopefully we'll be able to KO the Shaman right away. I think it has to be our enemy priority number 1. And then I need to really consider, do I actually have good switches to be able to deal with the Screamtail? I thought about being able to bring the Suicune. It's definitely a Pokemon that I think would have been very good into the Galarian Zapdos, but it's a tough call, I think, to be able to bring. Right, so you're going to see the same leads. It's going to be Ting Lu alongside that Shaman this time around. I think we do have to go for a bit of a different answer here. And I think maybe right off the bat, I'm just gonna see if I can actually just... Let's nuke it, shall we? We saw the Shaman has Seed Bomb, Sword Stance. It also has Tailwind, and I actually don't know if it has Protect. But I feel like it has to, right? I'm just gonna go ahead and go for it. Because I think worst case, we actually see the Shaman Protect, and then we actually get a chance to see what this Tinglu can do. And James is gonna go for the Terrestrialization. It's Terra Poison, so it is gonna be taking a bit less damage from some of my other Pokemon, but it does open itself up to an Ivy Cudgel. So Ivy Cudgel into the Shaman, it actually does about 50%, and the Shadow Ball to follow it up. I actually don't know if this is gonna be a KO. And it's not, so that's really important to identify. Tinglu now gets to operate under Tailwind, as does, of course, the Shaman. And we see the Throat Chop, and that's just going to be a one-hit knockout into the Mismagius. Okay. That is a lot of damage. Now, this is where things, I think, get a little bit funky. It's not Assault Fest. Is there any possibility that this Tinglu is like Choice Specs or something crazy? I don't know. Ooh, this is so hard. Well, I do think that the Tinglu being on the table is certainly not something that I appreciate. But I think... Oh, it's so hard. I think I'm just gonna go for Double Shock here. Ooh, do I actually want to try to get... Ah, this is so hard. I think Revival Blessing is nice, but the Mismagius is no longer the fastest thing on the field. I don't know how useful it is. Oh, it's so hard. I think I'm just gonna double into it. I'm gonna hit the Shaman. We're gonna see the Tinglu switch out. And it is going to be the Screamtail. So Screamtail coming in, it is going to be taking quite a bit of damage from the Pawmot. I'm actually really glad I didn't go for close combat into the Screamtail, because it would have done like a negative damage. But the Seed Bomb breaks the Focus Sash, but we do get the KO onto the Shaman, so it's definitely not as key of a threat. But going for the Double Shock on the Pawmot, nice damage into the Screamtail, quite honestly. Oh, it's so hard, because like I really do want to hit... I want to hit the Screamtail, but it's so complicated to actually figure out how to do that. I'm actually just gonna... Ooh, I don't have... I'm gonna switch in the Goodra. I think Pawmot just gets like KO'd to a Psychic Fangs, and I need to read into this next turn a little bit. Force James to maybe go for something like the Psychic Fangs into that slot. Goodra's not going to be taking too much damage from it. And I still have an opportunity here, I think, to be able to like hit the Tinglu. Obviously, there's still the possibility that this Screamtail has Encore. I don't think we've seen a fourth move. So it'd be actually pretty bad if we got like Encored and a Spiky Shield or something. Oh, but we have to hit the Screamtail. Okay. It also leaves. That's actually not that bad. Screamtail is gone. We're going to see the Galarian Zapdos now make an appearance. And so hitting that with an Ivy Cudgel. Yes, please. We love that. Galarian Zapdos is going to be pretty fast, though. We did see it under Tailwind conditions, I think. So it's not entirely... I'm not entirely sure that it actually does get... Okay. I don't think it's gonna get KO'd by this, but who knows? Okay, that's pretty good damage. Earthquake goes crazy. How many more turns of Tailwind do we have? 1. Okay. It's too bad because this Tinglu being able to go for Earthquake, like, oh, that's so tough. I think I actually just get double KO'd here, don't I? I should have brought the Suicune with Terra Flying. I just should have done it. I just should have done it. I don't even know if this is enough. I think I'm just gonna go for the Spiky Shield and at least hope, you know, that I have something. Zapdos uses Trailblaze. Self-Trailblaze? Oh my god, that's so smart. So, James can't use the Trailblaze into my Sap Super Gudra because I'm just going to absorb the attack. So you can use the Trailblaze that's not very effective into the actual Tinglu. And now the Trailblaze makes the Zapdos faster than me. Oh my goodness. All right, well, they don't actually have... Okay, no Tailwind left on James's side. Even if I decided to actually go for a fake out here... Yay. Oh, that's so tough. I wonder if this Galarian Zapdos has Covert Cloak. It's obviously not Scarf anymore, and now that it has a +1, I do think it's faster than my Ogerpon. And I don't think that I can chance going for a Revival Blessing here. But I also just, like, lose both of my Pokemon to an Earthquake anyway. Oh, man. James played this amazing. Yeah, because I think even if I decide to go for the Earthquake here, like, I think he could even... Oh, that's actually pretty good damage. So that's nice. But I think even if I get a crit with the Ivy Cudgel, it's just not enough damage to get through this Tinglu. So Earthquake is going to get a double KO here. And what a great Pokemon for James to have brought to this week. I think it was always a tough call in that final turn. Like, I can fake out the Tinglu, but still, wow. James, great pickup, great games, and congrats on the win this week. Well, GG's to James. Unfortunately, we are going to lose the set 2-0, but I don't know what else I could have expected playing against one of the absolute best Pokemon competitive players in the entire world, and versus a, like, nightmare matchup. This was so hard, like, so bulky. He can slow the game down in so many different ways. A lot of the reliable setup strategies and screens just don't work into this team. And he didn't even have to bring the Dondozo Tatsugiri to still bring something that was terrifying as his 6-2 this matchup this week. Game number 1, it actually felt like things were going pretty well. We were able to actually execute on the Acid Spray and the Grass Knot strategy to one-hit knock out the Tinglu, because thank goodness it didn't terrastalize. But after that point, things started to fall apart because there was a lot of inflexibility having Choice Scarf as well as Choice Specs and hard committing into a strategy like that. And who would have thought that the Shaman would have Sword Stance and physical attacks? Like, Shaman's move pool is not very inspiring for a Sword Stance set. We talked about Seed Flare as a potential option for this Pokemon, but when you actually look at some of the other physical attacks it gets like Bullet Seed, and it gets like Giga Impact, and it's all normal and grass type attacks. It also gets an Headbutt, I guess, but regardless, I think looking at Shaman and thinking that it would have Sword Stance is certainly not something that crossed my mind. It ended up being a really great call, though, just being able to have that physical damage into Mismagius that doesn't have the best defenses proved to be the perfect call. We're down to 50% HP on the Mismagius, and super easy to clean up from there. And the Screamtail was as annoying as we expected it to be. So that's really where I think the inflexibility of the Choice Scarf as well as the Choice Specs really came back to bite us. Jace is also so smart. Of course, you can see that the Hisuian Gudra is fast. I think that was a tell right away that it was going to be Choice Scarfed. And so the perfect disable, and this Yuengujir couldn't do anything after that point. It was very funny in the end game where it did get seed bombed and Sap Sipper got revealed, and then we actually got a struggle KO onto the Screamtail, but it was so too little too late. James still had the Galarian Zapdos in the back, and that was a Pokemon that I was expecting to see just to anchor the game number 1. Game number 2, thinking about everything that had just transpired in game 1. Yeah, I'm really not sure what else we could have done. I thought about bringing the Suicune. I think that it could have been a little, I don't know, a little something something. But the Shaman was such a problem, and even with a +1 from a Calm Mind, we are doing like 50% to the Shaman. It's a 3-hit KO. If I don't have the Calm Mind boost, and the special defense boost wouldn't have helped me at all versus such a physically offensive team. And we even saw Ting-Lu choice banded, I think, by the way, with how James was calculated, bringing it off the field. It got a 1-hit knockout into our Miss Magius with Throat Chop, and the Earthquake damage was crazy. So I think it was pretty safe to say that the Ting-Lu was choice banded. So you've got a lot of physical offense that way. The Galarian Zapdos is still going to be able to do a lot to just be able to get through, even I think a Flying Terra. And yes, we resist quite a bit of what James revealed, but I still think being able to like Throat Chop the Suicune, or what else? There was, yeah, it was, I think, always going to be pretty tough. And James could have also made the adjustment to bring something like the Golden Go, and Screamtail is still a problem. Bringing Suicune, there isn't a great amount of offense to actually get through the Screamtail, and I think we need Acid Spray or something like that to actually deal with it. And if the Ting-Lu's on the field, then haha, good luck. Even if we get a Calm Mind boost, we're still going to be doing less damage. So the Shaman, as you saw from even just taking the Shadow Ball, didn't get knocked out to the double up of an Ivy Cudgel to Shadow Ball because it was next to the Ting-Lu and Shadow Ball was doing less damage. This was always going to be a super hard win for us. Ting-Lu just being able to neutralize a lot of the special attack really came in to play James a lot of favors. And then just a lot of the offensive coverage options that he has for the Galarian Zapdos with great flying and fighting. Shaman has all those grass types, and then Screamtail being an annoying Pokemon. I think that Pokemon is going to haunt me in my nightmares for a while. What more could I really ask for except to try my best this week, and unfortunately it just wasn't enough to get through it. So we do have 2 more weeks of the SPL left, and I'm really hopeful that maybe we'll be able to get like a win or at least a couple more games, and you are all still finding this relatively entertaining. But for our final week, so we are going to be facing up against Mount for week 7, and then Moxie boosted as the finale of the regular season of the Shuckle Premier League season number 3. So thank you all so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.